Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Adrian Felix, and here's what Denver is talking about. Flooding drama at the Squire, our favorite new Denver businesses, and one that deserves more recognition, plus the state of Colorado media. Surprise, Denver. It's Adrian Felix. I'm a regular contributor to CityCast Denver. You're going to be hearing my voice a lot more for the next 2 weeks as our wonderful host, Bree Davies, is taking a much-deserved vacation. You may be wondering, why me? I would say that I'm uniquely qualified to host this show because I have been fired as a radio host previously. And the old adage is that you've never really worked radio unless you've been fired. And I certainly have been. But today, I'm super excited. I'm joined by Patty Calhoun, a regular contributor and editor at Westward. How are you doing today, Patty?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing good. So I'm excited to work with you, mainly because we've talked over email, and you said that you were going to very quickly stalk me.
And I did.
Well, we can just go ahead and dive right in. So the first story of the day is the flooding that happened on Friday at the popular bar on Colfax, the Squire. But beyond the flooding, the owner, Sudhir Kudva, who has owned the bar for 22 years, is actually blaming the city. The bus rapid transit construction that's been happening for Colfax, certainly well over a year for the flooding that occurred. And he is saying that it caused about $30,000 in damage to the city. So what is your take, Patty?
Well, the Colfax BRT has been disastrous for so many of these businesses. Ultimately, it might be a boon for the city. We don't know. We'll know 10 or 15 years from now.
Right.
But in the meantime, when we spoke to the owner of the Squire back in February 2025, he was already estimating that business was down 40%.
Sure.
And that was on the Colfax BRT had just started that fall of 2024. So he was already suffering. And many, many other businesses along this route have suffered. I know there's been some suggestion maybe this area flooded before BRT, but I haven't seen anything on that yet.
Well, and from what I read, the owner had commented that in his 22 years of owning the bar, that he had never dealt with flooding quite like this. And in the last year that they have done construction on his corner about 3 or 4 times, that may have impacted like the drainage of the system around the bar. But Olivia Jewel Love actually shared an Instagram post with us from Colfax Carousel, and kind of the commentary on the situation has been very interesting from everyone pointing fingers, mainly at the city as well as Mayor Johnston.
Well, it's hard not to point fingers at the city, even we don't know what's going on underground with wastewater and everything else because they've been doing work on that. But we know above ground, it's been a nightmare for almost 2 years for a lot of these businesses. The grants they've offered have been pretty small. Thankfully, the Squire has a lot of regulars who aren't very fussy sometimes about their surroundings, as evidenced by the old Squire bathrooms, which were probably the worst in the city. Now, they're improved now, but people like the atmosphere at the Squire. And I think as long as it stays open, they will be going there. You know, it's almost 100 years old, that building.
Yeah. And so I want to say the owner said that if he feels that if this type of flooding happens again, he's very worried about like the structural integrity of the building. But just a very sad situation. And just to read like some of the comments that are blaming everyone, what I think the common denominator is that people of Denver really believe that this construction on Colfax is the worst project to ever happen to Denver. And I'm certainly in that lane. I will say that I avoid Colfax at all costs because of the inconvenience of that construction. And as you kind of alluded to earlier, we're really not going to know the benefits for quite some time.
Now, allegedly, everything is supposed to be open to Colorado Boulevard by this fall. That is the report. But in the meantime, what businesses are still left there? You know, we had the CityCast just had its big celebration on Colfax at the Satire Lounge, another venerable bar that I certainly hope didn't flood. And, you know, you just don't want to lose any more of these old businesses. And you certainly want to encourage new ones too.
Well, of course. And from what I read too, I believe the owner, Mr. Kudva, said that they employ 16 people, and this is very much their livelihood, that they're going to be disposing of about 30 kegs that were impacted. But more importantly, I thought it was very interesting that he said that he wants the city to investigate how their project impacted this. And what I imagine happened Friday is that was definitely maybe a flash flood situation. They said light rain, but certainly there are pockets of Denver and even in where I live in Rhino that like a flash flood is kind of scary, and it does happen rather quickly. So even like a small rain lasting 10 to 15 minutes can like create this type of damage.
Havoc. And if you look at some of the videos that have been posted, there was a lot of water on Colfax very, very quickly. Even if it was a small rain, it was definitely severe.
Definitely severe. And, it'll be interesting that if they decide to go with that investigation, what will they say? Will they like maybe take any type of liability that it incurs? But then I do think it opens up a floodgate of any business that has been inconvenienced by this construction is going to come forward saying, hey, where's my cut? Where is my help that my business has been impacted by this? So it's kind of a double-edged sword there a little bit.
Well, I would think the city will. I haven't seen a statement yet from the city, and I sent a couple notes out about this specific incident. The city's been doing some grants for people impacted, but they're just not big enough for what the impacts have been of the construction alone. The flood is something new.
So I guess a question for you, Patty, is have you actually attended the Squire? I've never been there.
Oh, I certainly have. Yes.
Okay.
It was huge for comedy 2 decades ago. It still does live music occasionally, although they had to lay off their booking agent just because business was down so much. But it is a classic. It is definitely one of Denver's top 10, I would say, dives, which is the highest honor I can give something. It has so much neighborhood vibrancy.
Well, I imagine
today it's a little damp.
Yeah, right. But with 22 years of service in Denver, I think for a business to last that long, really like speaks to how much it's like beloved by the community.
Right.
So, it provided that they are able to get things cleaned up and moving, I will definitely be looking to see what they're doing. But just a sad story. It makes me wonder too if there's anyone else in the area that had issues that haven't said anything.
Well, I think we'll hear soon, and it's only 22 years under the current ownership.
Oh,
as far as
okay.
I know, the Squire it was there when I started Westward in 77. So it has been around a long time.
Yeah, I always love to, and probably what I give Bree most credit for is that when I was stepping in to do this hosting gig, I was like, well, where are my limitations and where, can I kind of pick up for Bree? The thing where Bree is very much irreplaceable is like how grounded in her roots she is with Denver, because there's no one I can like mention as a business owner or someone who's been like a Denver frequent for a while that she doesn't have some sort of connection to. So I'm sure that if Bree were here, she'd be able to speak to plenty of times that she had at the Squire. But I feel that's like anyone who's been in Denver for a while knows these places quite well.
And certainly anyone in the comedy scene, they were so great for up and coming talent in the 2010s.
The one thing I will say that I've seen is that a lot of people on these threads have been asking for a GoFundMe in case there's any way that they can help, because again, this impacts their business and the people that they employ. So if that comes up, I'll be sure to include those in the show notes.
Great. Yeah, because we haven't heard if they have to close, what the real problem is going to be. And that's up to a couple city agencies. And really, if the owners can dry it out.
So our second topic for today, which I was super excited about, basically our favorite new Denver businesses. And then we'll close with a Denver business that's been around for a while that really doesn't quite get the flowers that they deserve. So we actually split this into 3 categories: your favorite new place for food and drink, your favorite new place for service, and then one of your choice. Patty, I'm going to start with you for your new favorite place for food and drink.
I love this place because it comes with such history, and I might mispronounce it, but Ray Trey opened last month at 640 South Federal. It's started by 3 sisters whose parents owned the original restaurant in that location,
Ooh.
which was New Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Ray Trey. The Nguyen family, the mother worked there as a cook, and when they bought it in 87, and then they wound up selling it, closing it in 2024. They couldn't sell it. Now the daughters have reopened a new Vietnamese restaurant there. And what's so important is the tradition this keeps up in this town. A lot of Vietnamese refugees came here in the 70s,
Mm.
and they created some of the country's biggest and best Vietnamese restaurants. They've gone on some hard times lately, but Retray is back, and it's really, really excellent. And the three daughters of the founders.
Yeah, I really love to hear about those like multi-generational things. And I feel that that's something that can be said about a lot of Denver restaurants or just any place that there's like, oh, my parents opened this. And I always find that super fantastic. Do you have any like dish recommendations?
Everything there is pretty great. They used to have the world's hugest menu. It is still pretty large. I would say the soft shell crab is fabulous, but go for a big combo platter so everyone can try everything. We were there and ate way too much about a week ago.
So I'm not much of a seafood guy. Is there like a pho on the menu?
Oh, you name it. It is on
Okay,
that
good.
menu.
Yeah.
And the daughters, I mean, one daughter owns Dan Dan on East Colfax. One daughter owns Bon and Butter. So they are already in the business. They just decided we are going to bring back this space on South Federal.
Wonderful. I will definitely have to try it. Like I said, I will scour that menu for anything that doesn't include seafood.
Lots of vegetarian stuff.
Oh, yes. That's the type of stuff I like because I am a very like health conscious guy, but for whatever reason, seafood just doesn't stay with me very well. But that sounds good. I love a good pho. So I'll go next. My new favorite place for food or drink is actually called Friends and Company Coffee. It's actually in the same space as Rise Comedy on 22nd and Larimer Street. It's 1 month old. It's a Latina-owned business. I spoke with the owner. Her name is Vanessa, and she's super excited to get it going. She gave me some great recommendations. I actually went with their Happy Matcha. It is definitely an espresso matcha coffee place to go. I had their Happy Matcha, which was basically a matcha that had strawberry jam at the bottom. And she let me know that the jam that is used in this drink is like she makes from scratch by herself. I will say it is the best matcha in Denver that I've ever had. And that says a lot because I'm a matcha girly. Like if I go to a coffee shop, I'm getting matcha. It was the best drink that I've ever had. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about when we were discussing the categories for today is that the true reason why I love this place is the events that they have. They're actually having speed dating come September, which is good for single people in Denver because I think Denver folks need a little bit more love. But she said that it will be LGBTQ friendly, that some of the rounds will involve that community as she wanted to be inclusive. So definitely check it out. Our next category is service. And so this one actually took me quite a bit to think about. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Patty.
Well, I have to say, I came up with a lot on this, but narrowed it down.
Okay, give it to me.
A recent poll, you'll appreciate this. A recent poll said that of all the institutions in Colorado, people trusted small business the most. And it's really interesting how beloved it was ahead of education. It was definitely ahead of politicians and media. People loved the independent small businesses. So I was looking at the Blue Pigeon bookstore that just opened on Larimer.
Okay.
So it's like 6 blocks down from or 8 blocks down from where you are. It's tiny. Its selection is limited, but the fact that new bookstores are opening and creating gathering places and in Larimer Square, which has become, it's tourist, but it's not as much of a neighborhood as, say, the area you were talking about.
Sure.
I love it that we have a bookstore opening there. And I wanted to also give a shout out to Denver Book Society. Against all odds with their very rough, controversial opening, it has become a really important third place for a lot of people. And they're doing some great programming. Like they're doing a screening of Peter Heller's Dog Stars, the new movie coming out. And they have stepped up in a way I think a lot of us didn't think would work in the very beginning.
Well, I think it's really interesting too that you chose a bookstore because I will say that it's like, I don't know if my generation would really consider themselves readers, but what I will say is that, like, last week episode, our August guide with Bree, she had said that she'd recently gotten a Kindle. And so it makes her read. And so I feel like it's the same concept in terms of like bookstores opening up, is that it makes you want to purchase books and read.
Or at the very least, just go listen to an author, listen to a
Mm.
program. Little Blue Pigeon has already had programs on Larimer, and it just opened in April. Denver Book Society has a lot of different programs. It's over on East 17th. So the more things that get people thinking, the better.
Well, it's so funny because when we had pitched this topic, we really were going for new. And I feel post COVID that we really have lost like the sense of time. So my choice was actually the Rosemont Barbers off of Larimer and 35th. I guess you and I have this common thing where there's a lot of stuff happening on Larimer, but in particular, their Five Points location. And I'm like, they opened up a few months ago. They're right under me, and I checked the date to make sure about when they opened, and they've been open for like over a year at this location. But I am going to consider them a new business because they announced last week that they're opening up a new location in the Highlands, and so easily my favorite barbers in town. The thing is, what I feel that with barbers is that a lot of men may find the services like expensive, which may be true. But I do think that it's one of those things where you don't have to get your hair cut every time at a barber, just maybe for a special occasion, or you just want to treat yourself. That is where the investment is. And I have this conversation with my mother all the time because when she goes to get a haircut, she's like, it's $200 for the haircut and the coloring and all this stuff. But she only does it maybe once or twice a year. Men tend to get haircuts, I think, far more often. But in the event that you want to treat yourself, they're my recommendation. They do a great job. They offer like facials or just beard trims, tons of different services, and they're usually have like a good selection of different hairstylists that have different times that you can come in. I will recommend though that if you are wanting to go to a barber, that you make plans beforehand because the walk-ins are always much more difficult for them. But the Rosemont Barbers, that's my recommendation for services. The next category is your choice. For my choice of a new business that has a different type of service, the show that I got fired from on 1310 KFKA when I was a radio host was called The Nerd Show. And I got fired for the funniest reason. Basically, the Nerd Show was sponsored by a store called the Nerd Store, and we would discuss, movie, games, card games, trading cards, and just like upcoming releases. And the story of the week was about Star Trek, and the newer movies where Chris Pine evidently didn't want to do the movies anymore because he said that he didn't get paid enough. And the comment that got me fired was, he really should be worried about making sure his female co-stars get paid as much as he does. And evidently that was a bridge too far for some of our advertisers. I was like, really? But the AM radio audience is very different than the digital space. I feel that the digital space, you can kind of say what you want and people may get upset. The store I chose is actually called Royal Bounty Collectibles. It is a new kind of like trading card collectible store off of Quebec and 7th Avenue. I went there last week because I am a huge nerd. I collect Pokemon cards like nobody's business. I had some duplicates that I was looking to sell, and it just so happened that they were a new business that they've been open for about 4 months from what I talked to the owner. And I went and I sold some cards, but I've been to plenty of collectible stores, and I was super impressed with how clean the business was, how friendly the owners were. But more importantly, I was like super excited for them because they said that the impact from community and community showing up for them, that they're actually expanding into the space next to them already just after 4 months of being open. So there is just like a huge audience and I guess maybe collector group in Denver that I wasn't aware existed that they let me know about. So they were my favorite new service.
That's great. And new businesses keep coming up all the time. And Lord love them because it isn't easy. I mean,
right.
I was an entrepreneur who started Westward too. And I can tell you, I would never do it now. You do it when you're stupid and young. And it doesn't occur to you, you can't do it. Now you realize just how tricky it is. And so my hat is off to everyone who tries.
Wonderful. And so, lastly, we'll do with the business that deserves more recognition for the time that they've been around. Do you want to start, Patty?
Well, I should be talking about Lux Salon, which is an older business where I go and I can see as I look at at my face, it's time for a cut. So Lux Salon, I love because when you get your hair cut, it's more than just your hair. It's
Mm,
community. You're talking, you're catching up with people you haven't
sure.
seen for a while.
Hmm.
But I'm going to go with one of Bree's favorites because she's not here, and this is where I was when I first started researching. The satire is great. We were there last week, but another long-term place is La Fiesta, where Bree had her wedding reception,
Okay.
and it's at 2340 Champa. It's kind of in your hood if you've been there, but it is a Mexican restaurant that's been here since 64. It was Denver's first Mexican nightclub, which is really great. Now it is just open for lunch on weekdays and on Friday nights, but
Oh.
it's family owned since 1964. I mean, we need to celebrate these longtime places.
I completely agree with you. It's like giving that the turmoil that we've seen over I think the last 2 decades in Denver with like the idea of owning a business. And I will come forward and say it. I do not find it within my spirit to be an entrepreneur. I think that is like one of the scariest things, other than being a journalist, where I will give you credit, Patty, because I will tell you I am certainly not a journalist. But the idea of entrepreneurship in Denver is like a very daunting task, I imagine. And so these businesses that have like really got a hold of the system and have been around forever really do deserve their flowers.
Any old business on Colfax that is surviving, certainly the Satire and Pete's Kitchen, which is where CityCast had its event 10 days ago, really a wonderful long-term business that deserves people. And I would like to give a brief shout out. God knows how it survived. The Tattered Cover
Oof,
continues to
yes.
go and has
Mm,
not been as horrific as a lot of us thought it would be.
yeah.
The Lowenstein complex is still going. They still have local authors highlighted. They're starting a new book club thing. So they are trying. And of course, the Sea Film Center and Twist and Shout, also in that complex, are great additions to the city and not new.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about that is to be like in the news for particular dramas and still finding your way through those moments in order to keep the things, moving. And so I think that's like a perfect example of that. I actually chose 2101 Cleaners off of Market Street. They are my favorite because I love a good dry cleaner. I love when things are like clean and fresh and wonderful. But in particular with them, I have this one tie that I love. When I want to say, God, maybe 8 years ago, I bought a Louis Vuitton tie and it's red. And I bought it because it was going to make me feel like I'm the boss. I cannot wear this tie without staining it in some way, shape, or form. Every dinner I've ever worn this tie to, I have dropped food on it. And every time I have taken it to 2101 Cleaners, and she has had it taken care of. Every time I open the box and I see my tie that is there and it's like perfectly clean, I don't know how she does it. All I know is that the people there are miracle workers. And so I am so grateful for them for always taking care of me and my clothes, and in particular, my Louis Vuitton tie.
Well, I'll remember that next time I
Yeah.
drop a cup of coffee on myself, as I just did this morning.
I'm telling they really are miracle workers. I'm like, I don't know how they do it because I was like, it's really ruined this time. And sure enough, they've got me covered. Our final topic of today, which is one that was kind of given to us by Patty. So basically, the story is in radioinc.com. And so Alden Global Capital, who I guess is a hedge fund, has taken part ownership of Cumulus Radio. And so I come from a radio and TV background. I've certainly seen like the impacts of what COVID has done to like the broadcast world. But I guess we wanted to speak more broadly about like the state of Colorado media today.
And sadly, I think it mirrors the state pretty much around the country. There are very
Mm,
few success stories. We love it when things start up, like CityCast 6 years
mm,
ago, new additions, but we all know how hard it is. And Alden bought the Denver Post, among
oh,
many, many other properties decades
mm,
ago. And I was thinking about it as you look at Colorado's 150th anniversary, which we just celebrated. at their height, the Rocky Mountain News, which died in 2009, and the Denver Post, they had almost 600 people total in their
Mm,
newsroom.
mm.
And now the Denver Post has under 60. So you look at the number of reporters who don't exist anymore,
Right.
who aren't covering stories. It's tragic. And we're seeing that in radio too. You're losing the independent voices. We just lost Brett Sanders, and it's the global conglomerates are cutting back on talent, no matter what they say.
Yeah, no matter what they say, because I remember specifically after COVID. So, just a brief history about me. I worked at 1310 KFKA for the first 5 years of my broadcast career. And then I went to Entravision Communications, which is a Univision affiliate, about 5 years into my career. And I was there for about 7 years. And during those 7 years, I was there at the height of COVID. I was considered an essential employee in the traffic department. And I really saw like these major cuts happening across all departments. And I would say the one that it probably hurts the most is news, because they are really like the bread and butter, I think, of any type of like local media coverage or any type of journalism. We lost our promotions department in radio. My staff went from 5 to 3. What I will say that is, to me, the scarier part of this is that I do feel a lot of media conglomerates or media affiliates really do love to work on a skeletal crew, which is just incredibly draining on everyone, but I think in particular journalists.
Absolutely. So when you have something breaking, even if it's just a flood at the Squire,
Mm.
if you don't have a weekend staff, you don't have anyone covering it.
Mhm.
You have, especially the Post, when you look at it, it's a small staff. CityCast, you don't really have reporters on over the weekend. So we really rely on citizen journalists, and you get a lot from social media. But the problem, of course, is with social media in general, they're not the ones who continue to investigate and talk to the city and hold the city accountable for reports. You can have suspicions, but just chasing down all that tedious fact finding,
Sure.
that's what you need to pay a journalist a living wage to do. And there just aren't enough journalists out there.
Well, and it's been, I think, very interesting to watch too, that not only are these like mergers happening and, all of these purchases, but as well as the change of moving from either broadcast or written into the digital world. I'll never forget my SVP asked me, because I'm a millennial, he said, "What can we do to like get your generation to watch TV so that our advertisers invest so that we can hire more journalists?" And I'm sure he was very disappointed by my answer, because I come from a generation that doesn't care to watch cable news. We don't care to invest in TV. We don't care to invest in radio, largely because we want to self-curate everything that we consume. That like, I want this story when I want to read it or when it's available to me. And I'm certainly not going to wait till 5 or 6 in the evening in order to like watch a newscast happen. So like watching any of these like media platforms kind of maneuver just the changes that are happening with technology, but also the generational ones.
Right, which is you might put something up on Instagram. That doesn't mean it's going to suddenly go over to the TV station. So I saw in the 9 News had a story on Instagram about the Squire. I highly doubt it sent anyone to watch the new broadcast.
Right.
That's just not how it works.
Right. And, with that said, it's like, again, this idea of like wanting to self-curate our news and consume it when we want. It's like, how can, I guess, media think about how to like profit off of that? Because I feel like digital advertising only does so much. And I will say that there is also value to like written media as well as TV and radio, because there are still plenty of like, Gen X baby boomers who like prefer to get their content that way. But I think over the next 10, 20 years, it's really going to be interesting to watch how they have to maneuver that complete change.
Everyone is going to be maneuvering because there's something new coming up all the time. We just want more people producing news. More people.
Sure. I guess my question for you, Patty, is that there's obviously a lot in the news about the way that AI is impacting our business. What have you personally witnessed or seen in terms of AI impacting how you do business?
Well, I would say the worst thing you've seen is that when AI fools people, and I hope it has never happened in Westward, we haven't heard, into running whole fake stories. And that's happened in some places. Mostly what you want to be sure of is that your reporting is original and from the original source.
Mm.
So you want to talk to someone in the city and quote them. You don't want to find something by looking at ChatGPT that says the city said this when they may not have. So it's verifying what's real and what's artificial. It's really tricky.
It's very scary. What I will say is that I'm a student currently at Metro State because I'm actually looking to leave the broadcast world. It was like 12 years of fun. I enjoyed it, but I'd like to see what else is out there. And one of the things that I'm like really having to like confront is the way that AI impacts the way that students do like their own investigations. And very often AI will give them like an article that does not exist from, a news company that does not exist and tell them like it's fact. And it's very scary to witness that that they're not even realizing that they're like putting, I guess, a source in their essay that doesn't even exist. So I can only imagine how terrifying that is with the news world.
The internet gave us access to information, which was so great. People who never had access to information before, ideally for free. You don't want paywalls. But what it's also given us is access to fake information. It makes it so much easier to spread that. So it's really a double-edged sword that we have to be careful about all the time.
Yeah, I guess I never considered that. And you saying that actually terrifies the living hell out of me. Well, and then too,
that wasn't my goal this morning.
That certainly wasn't, but it's just a very interesting thing to think about. And in particular, from what I remember working in broadcast and seeing journalists is, some people handle deadlines better than others. And I feel like maybe that would be the incentive to go, I need this put together quickly. I didn't have the time. Let me ask ChatGPT or AI to put something together. And then after that of like, let me edit this. Because I will say that is the bigger problem with students that I think I've witnessed is that they'll have AI write something for them, but they don't read it. So they have no idea what it is that they're saying or not saying because they simply trust AI. So I can only imagine that would be the reason that journalists are like, I need something quickly. Let's have AI put something together.
Well, our policy at Westward is you don't use it for any writing. You don't use it for reporting. You can use it maybe to transcribe your notes, but you've got to be so careful on it. But you've already seen some media outlets have said AI was used to take our original reporting, and often like it's high school sports or something where you've got the scores, you've got the numbers, you don't have the people to actually do the writing, but it's still such a slippery slope into a morass of meaninglessness.
So with that being your policy, I guess my final question for you is how do you guarantee that?
Well, that's a good question. When you it's kind of bad. It's like plagiarism. When you find out someone's plagiarized from a reliable source, you don't use them again. When you find out they've used AI, which is not a reliable source, you don't use them again. But sometimes you can be suspicious about certain things, certain wording. That I heard for a long time that the M dash was a sign of AI, but I happen to love the M dash.
I love an M dash.
Right. So that is not something we can be held responsible for. You just have to keep an eye on it and maybe do a little fact checking yourself. But you would think anyone who wants to earn a living and is told you cannot, in journalism, and is told you can't use AI, you think they'd be smart enough, but there are plagiarists out there too.
Yeah. And like I said, getting fired from a media business is more common than you think.
Yes. And it's going to keep happening.
Yes, for sure. Turnover in any type of reporting is just always funny to me. But Patty, I really enjoyed our conversation with you. I have so much respect for you. Again, every time I sit with the journalists, I think about all of the hard work that you guys do that I am unwilling to do. So thank you for sitting with me today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Squire owner Sudhir Kudva about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcast, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our morning newsletter at denver.citycast.fm. You can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye.